Vincent van Gogh, the famous Dutch post-impressionist painter, had once said about love, love is something eternal. The aspect may change, but not the essence. And so, once upon a time, Krishna stared at the city of Mathura that lay before him. He was the lord of the city. Kans was a slain demon, and Jarasan was still preparing his armies. He had time. Enough time to think about the only one who occupied his mind night and day. The one he missed more than life itself. Radha. His memories went back to a moonlit night by the pond in the forest of Vrindavan. Radha and he had sat hand in hand. Kana, do you know that there is something called karma? Radha had asked him innocently, the reflection of the moonlit pond swirling in her eyes. I have no clue what that is. Kana decided to play along. He wanted to know Radha's definition of karma. Well, they say that God keeps a record of your good and bad deeds, and then after you're dead, He decides how good or bad you've been. If your good outweighs the bad, then you get a better life in the next birth. But if the bad outweighs the good, then you get a terrible life. Radha felt proud of herself for cracking the code of the universe. Are you sure that happens, Radha? Krishna kept his game going. Of course I am, Kana. All the gopis have been talking about this. Kana had felt so much love for his Radha that day. He just wanted to hold her tight and never let her go. He knew he could tell her the truth, but that would take away the simplicity with which she lived her life. And with the memory of that night came another sad, dreadful memory. He remembered the day he bid goodbye to the village of Vrindavan and left for Mathura at the behest of Kans. Everyone was there to watch him leave. Akrur had brought a chariot for both Balram and him. He had looked for Radha everywhere, but he could not see her. Then, when his chariot sped out of the little hamlet, he saw her standing, far away, by the very same pond. He asked the charioteer to stop the chariot. Radha did notice him, he could tell, but she did not raise her eyes to greet him. You did not come to bid me farewell, Radha? Krishna asked her. Radha looked at him with tears in his eyes. How can I? It's all happening because of me. It's all my fault that this is happening to us. Krishna looked at her confused. Because of you? Why you, Radha? Why would I be leaving because of you? Remember I told you about God in His book of karma? I know now that I had done terrible things in my past life. So God, to teach me a lesson, made me experience a great love and is now snatching it away. Radha could only manage to say that much before she began to cry. Now, sitting on the satin-covered couch in Mathura, Kana couldn't stop the sobs from coming. What had he done? He had broken the heart of the most beautiful, most innocent girl in the world, and then allowed her to think it was all her fault. He had to tell her what karma meant. He could not let her take the blame. Kana picked up the quill and dipped it into the ink. On the parchment that lay in front of him, he wrote the words, "My dear Radha, I want to tell you something about us, about you and me, and in that about everybody else. Do you then remember telling me that our not being together was all your fault because of the misdeeds in your past life? I wonder if you remember, but I cannot forget. I want to tell you how karma works. It's my gift to you, my love. Know this then, my beautiful Radha, that we are all just souls. Our body is just temporary homes for these souls. Also know that our souls take a lot of births because without the bodies, the soul cannot get what it wants, what it craves. It's how we need a tongue and a mouth to say what we think. The soul is like a thought, and the mouth is the body that the thought needs to express itself. We spend many years in our bodies, but a birth, it's just a day in the life of a soul, and the soul cannot be destroyed. So we have many bodies, but one soul, and that is the basis of the journey we undertake. Karma is the direction that we want this journey to take. So what is karma? Karma means action, deed. It's the action we take. Don't confuse it with the action a body takes. It's the action a soul takes. And the consequence lasts through many bodies. I know all this sounds very confusing, but don't start laughing as yet. The future is nothing but a consequence of our action. There are always choices, and karma is acting on one of those choices. When we choose, it is not for the body, but for the soul. Our choices and actions will decide our next birth, not God or a book he keeps. Our going apart is my action of completing my mission on earth. It has nothing to do with you yet. My soul craves your love, and you crave mine. I wish that when these bodies decay, we meet in a place of souls and become one with each other, never needing a body again. And I will always love you. Yours, Kana. After he finished writing, Krishna stared at the letter and wondered if he should send it to her. Would she understand? Knowing Radha, she would be confused halfway. And had she been with him, she would have enveloped him in her arms and said, "Kana, you confuse me. Talk to me instead about how you felt when you saw me the first time. And give me full details, please." That brought a smile to Kana even through his tears. Yet, even before Kana could decide on sending the letter, a gust of wind picked the letter up and carried it out of the window. He could see the parchment floating through the air towards the river. He sighed. The letter traveled over the villages and fields, over the grassy plains and trees, and landed at Radha's feet as she drew water from the well. Radha missed a heartbeat as the paper touched her. She knew who it was from. She knew the wind had carried his tidings for her. She quickly picked the letter up and hid it in the folds of her blouse, lest the gopis get a whiff of it. Late at night, when her work was done, she ran into the yard and opened the letter. The tears in her eyes blurred the writing, but even what she could read, she could barely understand. She folded the paper back and kissed it 12 times before she hid it again. Trust Kana to talk nonsense about karma just to make her feel better, she thought. But at least he was thinking of her. She looked up at the moon and said in a whisper, "If my Kana is looking at you right now, tell him he's my body, my soul, my birth, my death, and my entire universe. Tell him I love him since the beginning of time until the end of it." Lying in his bed and looking at the moon, Kana heard her whisper, and he smiled a sad smile. Love. Love was the only thing in the universe that needed no action, no karma. It was just there, whether you chose it or not. After all, even God could not stop the wind from carrying the letter of love, could he?